What's up, everyone? Today, I have a very special guest with me, my close friend, Khalil Zahar, entrepreneur, founder of FightCamp, DJ on the weekends as well. Khalil, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I guess what I want to talk to you about is everything about FightCamp, of course, entrepreneurship, mindset, marketing. But I guess it makes sense to start with how you started FightCamp, what is FightCamp, and how it came to be that you made that happen.
Yeah, so Fight Camp is basically the second evolution of the original company that we started. I founded the company with five other of my co-founders back in, basically it started in 2014. I basically was studying in school in engineering. And when I graduated in mechanical engineering in like 2011, I was not ready to enter the job market.
Right.
At the time, I was actually heavily into b-boying and breakdance.
Right.
That was like kind of my passion, and I wanted to compete, and which is a very bad career. But my father, I remember, was like, listen, I understand you want to do that, but you at least will need to stay in school a little bit. Otherwise, you might have to support yourself.
It's tough to have a future in that.
Yes. Yeah. It's like trying to become a professional athlete that doesn't make that much money anyway, even if you make it.
Yeah.
But I was super passionate about it, and I just wanted to basically get another few years before quote unquote real life starts. So I was like, okay, I graduated in engineering, but what if I just do a master? That would give me like another couple years.
Yeah.
So I ended up moving to Toronto to do a master research there at the University of Toronto. And when I moved there, my English was actually kind of, pretty scrappy. I could understand very well, but I was raised in Quebec City where these people speak French all the time.
Oh, I know.
So yeah, as you know, basically when I moved there, and I was like in a long distance relationship at the time. So basically my life was, going to the lab. And what I did is I just, I would go to the dance studio at night because they would, that's the time that they open it up for b-boys who don't pay to for a membership there. So it's like the same dynamic everywhere. But at 9:30 or 10 p.m., we would open the studio. So I would go to school until 5:36, work on my research, and then I joined the boxing gym. And this is where the inception of Fight Camp kind of started. So I basically was just intrigued by the training, felt like it would take my conditioning to a new level, and had dabbled in martial arts when I was younger, but never really kind of focused on it.
So your engineering mindset kind of transposed into the boxing world also.
Kinda, yeah. I was in it already had started to I was trying to apply the scientific principles to the training even in b-boying, and trying to hack my way to the fastest progress with the least amount of effort possible. And when I joined the boxing gym that was called the Kingsway Boxing Club in Toronto, I just fell in love with boxing. So I was 4 or 5 days a week, basically would be going to the lab at 6:30, hit the boxing gym from 6:30 to 9:30. And then I would go at this studio called Gotta Dance in Toronto from 9:30 to 12.
Right.
Which was kind of crazy to think about, 6 hours of physical activity and pretty hard training. But
you did that for what, 1 year, 2 year?
I did that for, honestly, I think I that type of rhythm, obviously not always on, but very, very regular. I would say probably a year and a half.
And when did you have the idea of launching a product in that space?
Yeah, I think after a year and a half or 2 years, I had went to a conference. I was toying with the idea of using, what I've learned in engineering school, but to start a business. I was just intrigued by it.
Yeah.
And I remember that, one of the things that I thought was missing into our training in boxing is any type of measurement. Like we were just not measuring anything. And, me coming from like the engineering space, you have to measure stuff if you want to try to
For sure.
improve it. So I just started to annoy my coach with like insane amount of questions and like, I don't know, philosophical debates around, like how will you know that are you plateauing versus are you like maintaining versus continue to progress?
Right.
And I don't know, I was in a space in my life where I didn't want to half-ass anything. Like, otherwise, it's not worth even doing. So like if I'm really going to invest that amount of hours, I wanted to lead to an outcome, which was, it was an interesting time. I don't think like that anymore, but
Yeah.
so after countless conversations, the first idea was actually to have a bag that you could measure your power on. So we wanted to like have a tracker in the middle of a bag.
Like in those fairs when you
Like
just
in
get the
those
bag.
fairs,
Yeah.
but those are like, they're not super scientific and they're like gamified, obviously, and so forth. But I just wanted to have basically a bag that as you work, as you train on it, would be able to give you data on progress.
Yeah.
So we tried that and it was a terrible product. It did not work well at all. And we moved from that to having trackers on the wrist using like typical accelerometers and gyroscopes. And it would connect through a Bluetooth to a phone. But like in 2014, like smartphones were just getting spread enough that
That's early.
yeah, that was like, even the Bluetooth connections back in the day were kind of fickle and they wouldn't really connect super well. So the original device, this is a very long explanation to how the company started, but the original device was aimed at people that were serious about training. And basically after we kind of came up with a few concepts, the Canadian Olympic team became interested. So they were like, hey, like, we'd love to get like early access to it and we would like fund you small amount of money.
Right.
It was $5,000 at a time.
That's not bad.
And that was not bad, earned over like a year and a half. But, coming from like a place where it was still validating the fact that someone was ready to pay for what we had,
Yeah.
So we got super excited and worked super hard for like 2 years, tried to figure out the tech, which was not working well at all for a very long time. And about 2 years later, we started having breakthroughs in how the tech would work well. But we were still far from manufacturing it and selling it. So we were still at the prototype level.
So what was the breakthrough? Like what was telling you that there's something there?
Well, first is we adopted, what today is a buzzword, but back in the day, we used to refer to it as more like machine learning and neural networks. Today, people would call it AI.
Yeah.
So that was like in 2015. And there was this guy that, we presented the product at like, I don't know, like a startup event or something in Montreal. And this guy was a PhD researcher at Polytechnique in Montreal. And he was very, intrigued by our product and stuff. And he was like, hey, by the way, guys, like we just did a hell lot of research on this and you should really look into neural networks because it's the best thing that we found. He was working on like trying to control a computer with your fingers.
Yeah.
And then we started looking into neural networks after that. And it really helped the tech. It made the tech a lot more reliable.
So you saw that there was demand, but also that maybe the future was in those devices.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And this is like way early, way before COVID, way before all the connected device. You were still like at the beginning of that curve.
Well, connected device were starting to be around. Like Fitbit was already public.
Yeah, that's right.
So Fitbit was around, but that must have been like that probably was the most successful tracker at the time.
Yeah.
That was the Apple Watch was recently launched, but it was not like as widespread as it is today. And you didn't have Whoop. You didn't, if Whoop was there, like they were very early.
Yeah.
So, and like that business was also not great. Like Fitbit was the biggest behemoth and they were not doing great on the stock market at all. Like they were making $2 billion in revenue and they were worth $2 billion.
So why you decided to continue in that lane.
Stupid. No, like, you know, I hadn't, I used to not really think that much about macros and market at that level. I was just trying to see, I was more focused on the consumer. You know, it's like, who's using our product right now? And it was professional athletes.
Yeah.
I was so far off from the mass market anyway,
Yeah.
that I wasn't focusing on that. I was just trying to win my niche. And I'm like, just focus on winning your niche, and the next thing will become clearer and clearer. So I wasn't putting too much weight on macro trends or what's happening on the public markets, or, you know, the economics of the industry, stuff like that.
So you stay to your vision, but how would you thinking about monetizing at that point, that market?
So at the time, basically, we had the trackers. They're like the size of your thumb. You put them on your wrist, and they basically tell you, they analyze each punch you throw, and they tell you the type of punch that it was. And we still do that, so that it is. It measures the speed of each punch. Then we would take all of that data and show you like output graphs. And you can measure your output graphs over time.
Yeah.
And if you're a better conditioned fighter, you should see your output higher than someone else.
Right.
Or you should see it go up as you do your fight camp. You know, wink, wink. Where basically, okay, now I'm able to output more and more volume during each of my sessions as I get ready for my fight. You could also, as a coach, you could literally flip the phone in front of the athlete and give kind of like live feedback as they work, they're sparring, for example.
It must have been something that you also use yourself, like because you were doing boxing. So you already had kind of the intuition that this is something that they would want, because yourself, you were prepared to use it, and it was very beneficial for yourself.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if it was like at that point, because the product got better over time. And by then I wasn't even in the gym anymore by the time it actually got good.
Yeah.
So it wasn't helping. It could have helped me. I kind of knew what I wanted out of it. But we were also working pretty closely with a lot of like trainers, like pretty high level trainers that were pretty vocal about like, hey, this is kind of the data I would want to see. And here's why. And this is the decisions I would make on that data. If I would see X and Y trend.
So you were always doing some kind of customer like development.
Yeah, we were pretty close to the customers at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were not just going on your vision. You were like listening to what people were telling you, and also where the market was going.
Yes. Yeah. It sounds extremely streamlined. Like when we speak about it like that, it was much more chaotic back then. But yeah, it's, it's like, hey, this person said they would want to see X graph. Okay, hey Alex, do you think we can build that graph? Yeah, I think so. And then, hey, this is what the graph would look like. And then we just do like these iteration processes like that.
Speaking of Alex, this is your co-founder. Like, how did you find your team? Like, how did you rally your people to build that product? Because it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, I just meant, honestly, friends and friends of friends. So it was, like Alex, I knew was a great engineer, and he was a couple years younger than me. So he was graduating by the time I was finishing up my master. But he was graduating in electrical engineering, but he had like a pretty big computer science background. We knew each other from, the circles we were. He was also b-boying, actually.
Oh, so it was completely organic.
Yeah. Breakdancing got a lot of us together, weirdly. We were friends, and I don't know. I don't remember exactly how we kept in touch, but at some point, it was becoming pretty clear that even though I would understand how to operate the signals of the device, I wouldn't necessarily know how to build it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of need someone who's good with microelectronics, and I was like, I'm wondering if Alex would resonate with that. And I think I wrote a message to him, and I was like, hey man, like, I'm not trying to work as an engineer, basically, and I'm kind of going against the grain, and I want to start my business. And here's the concept, and here's what prompts me to think that there's something there.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in teaming up with me? And he sent me, like, he did like a white paper on how he would approach the tech. Like, completely blew my mind. Like I was just expecting a conversation,
Right.
but he literally wrote like a document of like, I think this is how I would do it and assemble it and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, dude, and I think he also just didn't want to like work as an engineer and
He was also super passionate about the product and the potential.
yeah. I think, yeah. And I think I don't know. I think we were just going a little bit, both like a little bit rebellious against the beaten path of just graduating, then going to school, like then getting your first job, then kissing asses to just get up the corporate ladder.
Just out of necessity. Like you didn't want to go through like what people would do, that just get a job, normal job, corporate job, and then that kind of your life is set.
Yeah. It just sounded like boring, to be honest. Like to me, like I was speaking to people that just were graduating and blah, blah, and I'm like, this sounds like where dreams go to die.
So that was in Montreal, but you moved eventually to the US, California. So how did you make the transition? Like, cause it's not easy for a Canadian to move it in the US.
Yeah. So what happened is by then we're a team of 5 and, and this is where we met our 6th co-founder, Tommy. And he was in the US and it was clear that like we had to go to the US at some point. So what we started doing is it was like, okay, now we have a little bit of traction. We know that professional athletes and very high level athletes want our tech, which is great validation. Now let's see if we can get some funding. So like we just put our hands on any type of entrepreneurship program we could put our hands on. So we did one program that was called Founder Institute in Montreal. And it was a very trajectory changing program for us. Like the premise of the program was very compelling to me. It was get access to Silicon Valley basically from Montreal. Like, like this is basically the Silicon Valley blueprint of how to build companies, and you can get it in Montreal.
Which is very attractive.
It's very attractive because all the best companies in the world at that point, like they were all coming from or connected one way, shape, or form to the valley.
And this is where the funding is also.
This is where the funding is. This is like, it's promised land of Silicon Valley where like, dreams become true and where big companies are disrupting the world and blah, 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 blah. So I was like, that sounds like the program we should do. So we did the program, and then the program basically opened the ecosystem of, frankly, startups to me. Like, there were very small niches of programs I could do in Quebec and so forth, but I just didn't really understand, like, how the whole web of funding and ecosystem works. And Founder Institute kind of opened that up for me. And I just basically, once you graduate from Founder Institute, you have enough traction that potentially you could apply to an accelerator, which, accelerator is actually the first time that you get money as funding. So it just provided somewhat of like, I was like, you can do so many things, but it just provided somewhat of a framework of, hey, this is what you do first, this is what you do second, this is what you do third. And that was a very helpful answer to have as a starting entrepreneur, because you can do so much things. You just don't know what to do.
You had to get the knowledge to know what to do, because otherwise back home, there's no Silicon Valley. So there's no one to tell you how to get the money, raise fund, and like build your product. You have to have kind of a curriculum. And those are the only people that can tell you what to do. So it was super valuable for that.
Because like, at least in tech and especially in hardware, which was a crazy endeavor to take without funding. But it's like, you will need to go down in cash before you go up. And that's like, with software, it's a little different because today you can really build like early version of products, honestly, for extremely cheap.
Especially with AI.
And like you can start making money very quickly. But for like products that were like, that required like deeper development, such as a hardware product where, we basically had one unit. Like we can't sell it. Like we needed to continue to work on the product. So having just like one unit and not like literally like building another unit will be, $1,000, $2,000, whatever, like that we didn't have. At some point, that money needs to come from somewhere. And we were very cash poor. Like we were students, you know? And we were not at a place where like I would have felt comfortable trying to raise money from anybody. So like the funding needs to get access at some point for companies like that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, you have no indication at that time of what do you need to show to get money and who do you speak to, and, you know, like how much is evaluating your company, you know? What do you mean? Like it's worth 3 million. Who says? Nobody, you know, says who. And so anyway, that whole aspect, I think, was very helpful with Founder Institute. So we ended up applying to all the accelerators after, and we got selected by the best one, which was amazing. I didn't even know how big of a deal that was until I actually started really researching. But we got funded by Y Combinator in 2016.
Probably the best of all of them.
I would say
It's
so.
not the best.
I respect a lot of the other accelerators too, but I just feel YC is the best.
Yeah. And then, so they invited you to come to California when they accepted you.
Yeah.
And what was the
emotionally, it's so stressful.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most stressful time in my life. It was like crazy.
Leaving your stuff behind, just changing country.
Oh, once we got funded. Yeah. No, so YC is like, you know, a lot of the other accelerators, they have like this long application process over multiple rounds of selection and so forth. And YC is just are savages about it. Like, you just fill up the form, you send a video. It's actually quite simple. It doesn't take a lot of work. And if they like what you say and what you've accomplished, they'll fly you basically. And I remember, I think, the math there. So there was about 5,000 applicants, and out of the 5,000, they would invite 450 or like 500.
Okay.
So like there's 90% drop-off rate just with this first application.
Yeah.
But with the 500 teams, they would fly because a lot of them are overseas. You know, I think at the time it was like 50% of them were not based in the US, all the way like to India, and, you know, like Australia, like as far as the world can go. So they would fly those teams for a 10-minute interview.
Wow.
A 10-minute interview, which is crazy.
Stressful.
Yeah. No, it's a very expensive endeavor for them too, you know. And depending how the 10-minute interview goes, sometimes they'll give you an answer right away, if it's a yes or no. Or sometimes they'll require another 10-minute interview. And my 10-minute interview, which was with Alex and Charles at the time, was with Paul Buchheit, who was literally the guy behind Gmail at Google. Yeah. So Gmail basically was his contribution to Google.
Not bad.
Not bad, exactly. I think he was definitely the most intimidating in there. And so that was the first interview. Yeah, I think Blackwell was also in that interview, which is like, you know, OG Y Combinator, Stanford, I think, connected guy. And after the second interview, because we required another interview.
Oh, so you went 2 rounds.
Yeah. And like that whole 10 minutes is just rapid fire questions. Like they cut you off. If your answer is too long, they literally savagely cut you off with another question. And you don't know if it's good or bad, but you feel like it's not good.
Wow.
And then after the second interview, it was with the founders of Twitch. So it was with Michael Seibel and Justin Kahn, which they had just sold to Amazon for $970 million.
Crazy numbers.
Like we went from like speaking to our local ecosystem back in Montreal, which like, you know, it's a great ecosystem, but like to go there and just like speaking to these like literally, you know, like disruptors of a whole different scale.
Yeah.
I remember walking in and seeing Maseratis parked outside, and like we were just like Ubering our way to, you know, like everyone, you looked around and everyone, you know, that you could really see who was successful and not just by just, you know, what car they just came out in. And yeah, so the same day they tell you if you're picked or not. And for us, we were we left the place, I think, at around like 8 p.m. and we went to a local bar, just like eating fries and like, you know, whatever. Like the stress has just come down, and we're like, yeah, you get a phone call if you're picked, and then you get an email if you're declined. So out of the 500, they choose 100.
Wow.
So
Very low number.
yes, like the acceptance. So from 5,000 applicants, 90% of them get weeded out, and then 500 get invited, and then they choose to fund 100 companies.
It's like 1% or less.
Yeah. That's yeah, I think that's like 2%. You know. Anyway, so like they give you 120K at the time. They give you 120K for 7% of your company. So we're there, like one guy's refreshing the email client nonstop, while this other guy, we didn't have a US number, so we had to like create a Skype number, and boom, like in the middle of the bar, the call, and we all start screaming because we know it's good news, and then we answer. We walk around with a laptop, everyone is looking weird at us, and then I called my mom and I was like, I'm moving to California.
Wow. What a story. So once you get accepted, what's the goal? Like, what do you need to do once you get accepted and you're in the program?
So it's a 3 month program, and it's basically 3 months of hustle on your business to make it as successful as possible. And then 3 months later, you present to a very big group of investors in Silicon Valley.
Right.
The investors are coming from all over the place, but you also get a lot of the very big funds on Sand Hill Road, and
Yeah.
the very famous VCs come and check out the companies. And then if they like what they see, then they could invest millions. Basically.
So at that point, is it like how many units you can sell in a certain amount of time that will decide if they invest in you?
It depends on the business. Like you have businesses that are like, for example, you had businesses that were making already $1 million a month. Like they were like really ahead of the curve.
Yeah, more advanced.
Yeah. But it was a software business and it was a consumer product. Other businesses were really, really deep tech. And I remember feeling really meaningless because we're working on this boxing product, and we're presenting right after, I think it was like Relativity Space, which was 3D printing rockets.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of these people are like really working on like the survival of the species,
Trying to compete with Elon's.
Right. Yeah. And like there was another one from our cohort. It was like boom, supersonic. So they're like, they want to bring supersonic flights back to the world.
Like the Concorde.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm working on this boxing product, So yeah, so like for these guys, like it's not about sales, it's about like product development, for example.
Yes.
So it's very company dependent. For us, it was about showing, like we're a consumer company.
Yeah.
It was about to show that we could build a big company with that. And that was very hard. Like not a lot of investors thought we could build a big business at all. Because how many boxing units can you really sell in the world, So, we tried to show that, hey, we can start with this, but then we could build that later and then like grow the market and so forth. But we didn't have an easy time raising money at all.
So how do you sell your product at that time to show that there's any market at all?
Right. So the way we did it is we, like some people were doing a Kickstarter. And Kickstarter or Indiegogo, which are platforms where before the products are built, people want to get access to the early units, so they give you cash in advance for you to basically build your products.
Crowdfunding.
And once you build it, then you ship it to them. And it's those platforms are like the people are super forgiving, and they know you're super early in your project and so forth.
Yeah.
That was one direction for us. We felt like we should just pre-order because our communities that was so niche, it was people that were into the sport. We just didn't really think that Kickstarter, we would get we would find a lot of our customers there. So instead, what we wanted is to own the distribution right away.
Yeah.
And target the right customers directly. So we just ran a pre-order campaign. And we started building our ads very early. And this was at the time where like Facebook worked, I would say was much cheaper to operate.
Still early, yeah.
Yeah, it was early. Well, it was early enough that like it was somewhat, I don't want to say easy, but the platforms were really cheap to get a lot of eyeballs that were
Mhm.
qualified on your product at the time.
Mhm.
So like, the CPMs were so much cheaper.
Right.
And yeah, so, it was kind of like a golden era where like going on Facebook was like being on crack cocaine. Like it would work like,
Yeah.
you'd get addicted to it.
It tends to be a better avenue either way, because if you go Kickstarter, you don't own your distribution channel.
Right.
You still rely on your early adopters. As of you already open your main channel.
Right.
And you kind of fund your startup with customer money right away.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I think the products, for example, that were like a little bit more kind of gadgety
Mhm.
and they're cool tech product.
Mhm.
They were selling, I think it was the community of Kickstarter and Indigo was just like people that were like, they like tech stuff and they're ready to take chances on new cool stuff. Like they're just early adopters in their own mindset. And they're like, let me see what products I can try before it's going to be big, But for us, it was such a niche application that we had a very clear idea of who was the customer that for us, it just didn't make sense to go there. We'd rather just figure out marketing right away, essentially.
And it worked.
It worked. It worked. Like, it wasn't highly profitable, but we knew that, like we could get customers in the door.
There's you validate the demand.
Yeah, that's right.
And at that point where you're able to raise enough fund to kind of go bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. So then after like we showed, we had, I think we sold we pre-sold $350,000 worth of trackers.
Wow.
So it was enough to raise in equity money. I think we raised coming out of YC $260K, which, at the time, I mean, like we were paying ourselves almost nothing.
Yeah.
It was mostly going towards paying the rent, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were able to survive essentially for like another year and a half and get farther into the product development. And we had to raise a little bit more money to go through manufacturing to come like creative ways, like in-kind investments from our manufacturer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And finally, we were able to ship. And when we shipped, sales went up like 30%, like as soon as we were officially shipping stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then with that money that you make from your V1, is the idea to produce a V2 right away, or you trying to monetize as much as possible with this first batch?
We were more trying to get a good V1 out.
Yeah.
That like it would work.
Yeah.
So like V2 actually didn't come until, I mean, I think we made kind of minor modifications to the hardware, but V2 literally came up like last year, which was like 8 years later. That was the official V2 of hardware.
Right, because you added software after.
Yeah, so like we added software, and then again, like this is still a niche device to professional athletes that we're selling until 2018, where we decided to go more mainstream in fitness. And this is where we added content.
Right.
So we used the interactivity of the trackers with content. And our goal now was actually to sell a workout program to the everyday person that just want to do boxing for fitness.
So adding content to the product itself.
Yes, content. And like, we went from performance measurement more so to gamification. And that's just not the same value proposition. Like the tech is the same at the core. It's still IMU trackers that, every time you're going to throw a punch, a kick, now kicks. And soon enough, like, any burpees or body weight motion you do will count as a rep. So we gamify that. We log that and gamify it for you to like set your goals, measure your progress, and compete against others.
That's crazy. So you have hardware, software, and
content
at the same time.
Yep.
So that's 3 times more difficult than any other.
Yeah. No. Like it's an interesting choice.
But at that time, you had also like Peloton that was also in the same space. So I guess this was a little bit more validating that it was possible.
Yeah, they definitely, I mean, like they swayed definitely our decision making. Like, I think at the time, I think this was like, so 2018, Peloton was already worth $1 billion.
Wow.
I think.
Yeah.
And, like their special sauce was basically the gamification that they added to the bike.
Yeah.
You know, before that, if you wouldn't have that, it was basically going to be the same as you could. I mean, it was a tablet where you could watch content of a spinning class. You know, so the whole integration with the interactivity and the metrics, we were like, hey, we can do that with boxing actually, and we feel like we've made enough of a brand in both locally and nationally that we could hire really solid trainers and you know, like we had the network for it.
Yeah.
So we felt like we were very well positioned to build a version of that company and completely own boxing. So that's kind of the inception.
It's crazy when you look back that at that time you had like kind of multiple industries coming together. Like you had, like you mentioned, like machine learning and like a wearables, but you had also the inflection point of like content, like social media was beginning to be super popular.
Yep.
And you kind of ride all those waves in one product, and it really took over. Like it's really like the perfect match.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like fitness influencers were not as big of a thing back. Like it was definitely, you had a few, you know, you had a few that were becoming big, but like today is ubiquitous. Like, you know, like I was actually speaking with Aaron that you had on your podcast last night. And like content, I believe is actually commodity now, you know, like it's because we were talking about like an app, you know, that was just content based without anything else. And I'm like, yeah, like almost all of them all died.
Right.
Like even Peloton right now, like the Peloton app is losing quite a bit of subscribers on a quarterly basis. Like they stopped focusing on trying to build that user base on the content app. And like you can get workout content for free a lot, you know, from Instagram to TikTok to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to monetize just that. Like I just see the people like influencers building their following with content and then selling maybe like personal training or whatever.
Yeah, monetize differently. So
Yeah.
what would be the game changer for you or Peloton if you say that content is just a commodity? Like what do you need to add on top of that to make it sticky or a success?
Well, for us, we believe that it's the integration of the elements that people pay for. So when you like the content in itself, the tracking in itself, you know, say like the gamification, the habit forming gamification in itself, I feel like when they're separate, like the sum of them all is greater than the individual sums, basically. Like the seamless integration between all of those things create a valuable experience. But if you just like sell them kind of separately, I don't think people are ready to pay a lot of money for those because you have a lot of like competition in each of those individually separated. But integrating all of them, first of all, is more rare.
Yes.
And becomes more useful.
Yeah, it's also more difficult.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But did you saw that coming? Like that this is gonna be kind of the sweet spot you gotta aim for, or it just happens like you?
No, like I didn't think of it like scientifically like that. You know, it's more like it's a look back.
Yeah.
Like after we found what was successful, then when I look back at it, this is how I explain it.
It's crazy. Like since the beginning of your story, it's always a question of kind of momentum. You start from zero, you try to get the information from someone, you pay for it, and then it gets you to the new place, and now you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Which gets you to the new places, and now you have a team. So now you're kind of ready to build something on what's ready in the market right now, and you kind of always build on that. If there's a new momentum, you catch it.
Yeah. You know, that reminds me of like an interview recently that I saw. I think it was like Mark Zuckerberg and Theo Von. They're like, we're on a podcast together. And like Theo Von asked Mark Zuckerberg, like, hey, how does it feel that basically you can dictate the future of technology in the world? And I thought like Mark's response was actually spot on because he's like, I don't really dictate it. I just uncover it. Like you know, you try a lot of stuff and some stuff people really like that and adopt it. But a lot of other stuff doesn't really work. So like, it's not like you get to tell people what they want to use or do.
Yeah.
You trial and error your way to it. And at some point you're like, oh, people really like this version of it. And you just keep digging and you follow the breadcrumbs. So like, it's not like this like analysis that like, you're like, okay, this is where I want the market to go. You're just uncovering needs of the market by doing a lot of trial and error. And then at some point you're like, oh, this is, there's a lot of energy going in this direction. So you just fumble your way to a new feature and a new product.
You just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Eventually it works.
Like with maybe a little bit more direction, but like, I think because you can really throw a lot of shit at the wall, hit zero. But like, I think using a mix of intuition, external data and validation, as well as like the customer's voice, Like, I think the ability to ping and to ping early is what makes great founders. It's like, if you can test quickly and like sniff the right direction, I think that's what differentiates someone who's really, really a great entrepreneur versus someone who's bad at it.
But you kind of have to just have the faith that you'll find something like that. Because you cannot figure it out before jumping in. So when you build a business, you have to trust your instinct, but also that these things are going to be uncovered. Like, you're going to figure it out as you go.
Yeah, like for me, I come back to what you said earlier. It's like, you're your own best radar. Like, I think sometimes founders make the mistake of like, what sounds good as a business, like they get attached to that. It's like, yeah, this business would make a lot of money, or it kind of makes sense that this business would work, instead of just focusing on like, hey, would I buy this service? Like, would I buy this product? Would I pay for something like this? Which is, in my opinion, a much more useful exercise. Like, I don't think that you should never think about the economics of the business, or like, why it would work in this industry, or where the market and technology trends are going. But I think there's just a lot more ways to get that wrong than if you're like, just focus on like, would I actually shed $100 to pay for X, like what I'm selling? And using that as like, okay, if I am, at least I might not be the only person in the world. And that's just, in my opinion, like a much, at least early stage, a much more useful question to ask.
How important was the kind of the influencer movement, or all the fitness trainer that you were having under your platform? How important it was to grow the business?
So when we started working with our trainers, like, they didn't have big followings. They have like fairly like good ones, but not big. Like, maybe they had like anywhere between 5,000 followers to maybe the person that had the most might have had like 30,000. So we didn't use their following. Like, we may have like, we probably got customers out of their following, but like, we sold more than 100,000 units. Like, so we didn't get this success from their followings.
Was it still just with ads that you were getting customer at that point?
Yeah, it was mostly like our main growth engine was a paid engine.
Was always like through Facebook or paid channel?
Facebook and Google, which we've, still work to try to diversify out of those channels, but Facebook still, Facebook, when I say Facebook, I mean like the Facebook ecosystem, like Instagram, Facebook.
How difficult it was to make that channel work for you? Like, and
it was the first one that worked. It was the easiest to actually make work.
Easiest to work?
Yeah. Like, easiest in a way that, like, it's the one that basically started working consistently the fastest.
Yeah, because ads is fast.
Yeah, like it needs a lot of care, and it always required care. But in terms of the channel working consistently for years, it's by far the one that worked the best for us.
So even though those influencers or those trainers didn't get you customers per se through their own channel, how you think that it did attract customers because they're kind of the face of the company. Because
Yeah.
that's through them that you give your workouts.
Yeah, I think that we had phases where we were leveraging that more than others. We're actually more going back into trying to leverage our social media channels just on what they look. I think at some point we kind of like the ads where folks were working basically they almost took like all of our attention. That like even our own profile, sometimes didn't get the attention probably it needed. But like we did work with influencers somewhat consistently over the past 5 years especially during the high season, and they drove for sure like a lot of sales and a lot of traffic. But it's not like the hit rate is not necessarily high. Like there's a lot of influencers we worked with that it was net negative.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
So what kind of ads will work or does work for your industry and your product?
What kind of ads in terms of the creative and what it looks like, or with with the influencers, or just generally?
Just in general, which one like perform the best for your product?
It's honestly a pretty wide array of content, but generally speaking, the ads will show what is the product, and then there's basically a long funnel of anywhere from explaining what the product does and what are the consumer benefits to then starting to hit at the trial barriers, all the way down to sense of urgency of why you should buy today, whether it is like a promotion, whether it is a like a calendar event that fits with anywhere from like New Year resolution all the way to summer bud and whatnot.
Yeah, because it's fitness. So obviously Christmas time is like the best time for you because people are starting to get back in gym. And then it's just kind of an influx of new people, new membership, the same thing as in a normal gym. It would be a big influx in January.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's honestly sometimes surprising how like you'll work so much on an ad that has this super deep message and has kind of this Nike feel of like inspiration and branding and blah, blah, blah. And you'll literally, I remember having a picture. It's literally an iPhone picture of our bag, which is only one portion of what our product is. And that ad was a killer. And we were dumbfounded. We were like, you put all this level of care into trying to say a deeper story, but like on the platforms, you don't have a lot of attention span to really tell a story. Like it needs to be quite explanatory, quite fast, and the algorithm finds the people that are already right into the mindset of buying your product and service. So I don't know. I guess my recommendation is that to not necessarily think that you have to have a crazy good ad built that's going to win like a Pulitzer Prize or whatever. like sometimes just a good iPhone, explaining what the product is, and that content can work 5 times as well.
So you never know when an ads will work or not. Like even though you spend a lot of time on something, you don't know if it's going to hit or not, and it could be very frustrating. So you kind of have to try it as much as possible, like give a lot of input. And at some point, you'll get kind of the return.
Yes, some things basically. So like the way we break down our creative assets, especially with the new direction we're going to, we're basically thinking of it as like 3-step funnels. The first is, this is for a product that requires discovery like us. Like we're not selling boxing classes. It's not that, it's not like that one ad, which is like, hey, join a boxing gym and try a class today.
Yeah.
Like you need to understand why this is costing $1,000 of a product. What, there's tech in it. It's for your home. There's a few things that we kind of have to get to. And just because of our price point, people have to see our ads more than one time to actually, end up buying.
Yeah.
So we have like the top of the funnel ads that were really about discovering. We're like, what are we selling? Like, what is this product? What does it do for me? Then you have the middle of the funnel, which now we're getting a little bit into kind of like, okay, now I'm interested. I'm in the consideration stage. Maybe I want to learn more about the price. Maybe I want to learn more about the subscription. What do I get with all of it? Like now I'm trying to learn more about, I'm getting into the evaluation of the value, essentially.
Yeah.
So in the consideration stage, maybe I have certain barriers in my head, you know, where it's like, oh, you know, like, is it made for me? Like, do people really get really good results with this?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So now you're getting people into the actual consideration stage. And then you have the bottom of the funnel, which is like, you should buy today. And here's how you can do it without having to take financial risks, money back within 30 days. Hey, by the way, did you know that we have financing? So now you're really kind of getting at the decision of pulling the trigger like today.
Yeah. So there's a big kind of nurturing process before they buy. And it's not like they see your ads and then poof. Especially
for us, it's not like that.
Yeah.
If we would sell like a product that would be an impulse buy, you know, say you're selling dog treats.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different dog treats, and I kind of want something, you know, like within the next couple of days because I'm going to go to the store and buy it. That might be different. Or maybe like I want to buy something today. The funnel might be a little different, and you might push to get the conversion right away.
So the price point, because you're more of a high ticket offer than just a low dog treat, like you just mentioned, it changed the whole game. People need more thinking, more consideration before they buy your product, even though it's still an e-commerce product.
Right. Like for us, for example, it takes about on average, it takes a month. You know, so 50% of the people will take a month between the first time they discover us all the way to like for them to buy.
Yeah.
And the other 50% is all the way to years.
Wow.
Could be like in the funnel for like, you know, 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah. So just shows that nurturing is super important.
Yes. You know, especially for a high ticket, you know, a high ticket price point. But if you look, for example, at, you know, how the ads are made for commodity products, like you look at Coca-Cola. And I think this might be like a misunderstood idea that when you're not a known brand, that putting your logo on the Super Bowl will do anything. Like it's actually a terrible expense.
Yeah.
Because the idea behind these extremely big, you know, like ads, like Super Bowl ads, or like just like literally logo placement on someone's shirt, like, you know, you see like the sport, the athletes, like in soccer, for example, you literally like pay hundreds of millions to be sponsoring like the FIFA, whatever.
Get the placement.
It's like, these are extremely highly known brands, usually in highly competitive spaces where you just want to be the top of mind brand as often as you can.
It's just awareness.
And like awareness being more so like in top of mind. So like, for example, Coca-Cola will spend billions trying to be in people's minds at every minute of the day, because when people go to the store, like so many people drink soda that if you have really good placement at a time where people buy a lot of soda, Super Bowl, when they go to the store, that moment, right, like they will be that much more influenced on buying that brand.
Yeah. It's a little about psychology.
Yeah.
Like when people want to drink or eat food, like you have to show your product more often.
Yeah. Like, you know, you basically occupy the emotional space and that will be required probably a million times today, that people will go and buy beer. Like there's a real one, like Bud Light will do all their crazy ads, is because when the person will go to the store, right at that moment in time where they have 7 different beer brands, they'll have an emotional connection to the Bud Light brand, and that will actually make a difference in sales volume.
Yeah. So for your product, like how do you nurture them to get to that point where they can buy? Do you just do retargeting ads or email? Like what's the strategy for your product?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different hooks, essentially. Like we have, think of it as almost like, you know, like the engine of marketing will try to like get multiple hooks, whether, first of all, the first thing is, okay, we show you our ads. Say you're a brand new person, 80% of our sales will come through that engine, the ad engine.
Okay.
So that could be a mix of Google, that could be a mix of Facebook. So you'll see our ads, you'll know we exist. Then you go on our website, and then we can use retargeting because, we basically, like, Facebook can pick your basically your pixel,
The pixel, yeah.
and after being able to show you those ads in the future again. That's one hook.
Okay.
Another hook is if you go on our website and you subscribe to, because we give you a brochure to learn more about the product, then you start getting into our email campaigns.
Yeah.
A third hook will be that, you saw our ads, you didn't go on our website, but you went on our social media profile and you follow. And then a fourth one is, okay, you know what? You might have seen our ads, but after you go on YouTube and you're researching stuff about boxing, which we have like a very successful YouTube channel with like more than 600,000 subscribers. And that becomes the hook that actually you invest a lot more time in, because you're like, you know what, I'm looking for a workout. And let's say you search like, boxing workout, 40 minutes. We actually have one of our workouts there.
So it's free.
It's free. We kind of like sprinkle some of our content to show you the quality, at the same time give you value. Maybe you want to learn some boxing technique.
Yeah.
Then you can get, a video that we tell you about the 6 punches. And now you start spending a lot more time into our YouTube channel, which has its own hooks to try to make you go to our website.
Right. So long form content, like to get
Longer form content, more value added for people that are a little bit more into, they want to get a certain information. And by us giving it to you, we increase the trust that you have with the brand. And at some point you're like, you know what, these people seem to have a very elaborate curriculum and I like their way of teaching. I want to give them my money.
Are you advertising those videos on YouTube, or they have to first go through the ads and then find you on YouTube, or is it
No,
a
you could-
completely different channel?
Completely different channel.
Right.
Completely different channel. We don't advertise. It's all organic. But we will, we experimented with YouTube ads in the past as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because do you see a change in how those channels plays out? Like if maybe YouTube is now taking more space, or you see that there's more of a pull from this channel than another one per se?
Honestly, no. That's been super hard to make the other channel. Like, we tried TikTok a lot. We tried like YouTube for us, what works is organic.
Yeah.
Like that's a great channel. But in terms of the ads channel, honestly,
All the same.
like Meta is on top still, and followed by Google. I'm very much looking, and there's not even just us, like a lot of other like consumer companies in our stage. And some of them are successful on TikTok, but not all of them, not a lot.
It's also smaller of a platform. TikTok is smaller than Meta or
Right.
Instagram.
I think they don't have the same. They just don't. I don't think they have the same targeting, like accuracy.
Yeah, I think the algorithm on Meta is super good.
Yeah.
Back in the days, you needed to have some good targeting, like good interest base, and find kind of your audience. Now you can just go broad, and with your scripts or your creative, the algos will find your people. Right?
Yeah.
It's super crazy.
No, I mean, but the world is due, because like right now these platforms have just increased their prices consistently for the past like 10 years, like always more and more and more and more expensive. So I know for a fact that like advertisers are very much starving for a new platform to be successful. I think an interesting one that has potential on paper, but that hasn't really seen it just doesn't have the granularity and the capability that people wish they had, is Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Like, they launched their new ad platforms, which I think is actually still like you have to be qualified for it. But they run it like the linear TV used to run it, which I don't understand why, because they have so much more granularity. Like, for example, for us, we would love to advertise FightCamp before a boxing movie.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
It's
it's just, but they just don't provide you like that level of granularity.
Not yet.
So you have to like, you basically are you're just paying for time instead of paying in a more targeted way towards like, the interest of the listeners. I think podcast is worked on some level. I mean, it worked for us on some level, but like it works like influencers. It's basically the same approach of trial and error, reaching out directly to the content creator, figuring out deals, and then trying to limit the exposure for your first test, and then seeing if it works well, and then you expand the budget.
But you mean that's still paid ads? It's just another ads,
Yeah.
another paid channel that you use podcasts.
Yeah. Like it's you know, it's we see it as it's kind of like its own channel.
Yeah.
Essentially.
What do you think of founder-led marketing? Like, let's say you have your own personal brand and you talk about your product, or you have your own content marketing machine.
I mean, it seems to work for a lot of people. You know, I think it works when your product and service are you as a vector for your product and services. Like, I don't think it works for, like, I don't think it's required essentially, but like,
Yeah.
as a service provider, I think you have to.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there's this guy, Ryan Fisher, he's the founder of this gym called Chalk. And like, he's very successful putting his own, like himself as a channel, as a vector for acquiring customers.
His own personal brand, like
Yeah.
propose the brand forward.
Yeah, like in fitness, you know, like people trust the trainer. You know, like for a lot of people, it's like, hey, my method, I can teach you my method, and a lot of the others that, you know, you've tried and were unsuccessful with, like, you'll be successful with me. So I think like when the trust and the quality of the service is into the person,
Yeah.
I think you have to do that. Like
Yeah,
for us, we're more selling a program,
Yeah.
so it's a little different.
Yeah, you're more distant from the product itself. Like when you're selling, like I work with a lot of coach trainer, for them,
Right.
it's their own knowledge that they're selling. So
Yeah,
it makes
yeah.
a lot of sense. In fact, it's essential to have your own personal brand and to lead by that. And I think this,
Yeah, I mean that will make you. Like if
yes.
your personal brand is solid, that literally like that will make the difference between you making millions
Yeah.
and not, you know.
But do you see like a difference between like if you bank on your social media or your personal brand there versus if you have a website and you just go on your website? Like,
Oh,
I feel that now the trend is more like
social media.
social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason is fairly simple. Like people just spend 7 hours a day on social media, and people don't spend that on websites.
Yeah. It's crazy.
You have a lot more eyeballs and a lot more attention span on the social media profiles. Like literally, I think it's outdid TV now in terms of the like amount of hours spent, especially during like for the younger generations. They'll spend more time on Instagram than they'll spend on watching TV.
Could you sell your product on social media? Like if you have an account for FightCamp, or you as a founder or all the other founders, could you sell the product on the platform itself, you think, without ads?
Explain. You're saying like if I have my profile.
If it's your own personal brand, like the guy with Chalk, like if you...
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like when we work with influencers,
That's what they do.
yeah, it's basically what they do. You know, like they're usually like lifestyle influencers that are fit or that want to become fit. The most successful ones are the ones that are fit already and are basically like their following is around how to be healthy, be everything else, be a mom, be a dad, and continue to like, you know, like basically having this balanced lifestyle where people are healthy and fit at the same time as doing everything else, you know?
Yeah.
So you're not just this like fitness figure that just does that for a living. You're just relatable person that is also fit. And people are like, yeah, like I want to see how you live so I can do the same.
Yeah. I think there's a big trend towards that now.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have a personal brand, I think in the next like 5 years, you'll be kind of left out if you don't have something, because people are
As like a founder, you're saying?
founders. Yeah.
Of like anything.
I would go as far as to say with anything in the near future, like maybe not all the industries, but I would say you can have some component of that. Absolutely. Because people buy from people. So if you don't have that aspect, and other products have it,
You're saying in any industry?
I would say that if you don't have it, like some people will use this for their industry. If you don't have it, like you're competing with someone who had it. So
That's an interesting theory.
yeah.
I don't know if I subscribe to it fully. Again, I think in some industries, it's definitely true.
Yeah, for sure.
I think personal services for sure. Like I'm thinking of like any type of coaching.
Service, yeah.
I'm trying to think of like how to systematically look at it. I just feel for products, well,
Because you see all the big brands using the big names, like you see Mint Mobile, like
with like Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds, or even The Rock with his own company. Like it seems like every of those big personality like launch
what
a
you're
new
saying.
product.
I don't know if it's required or it's more so that it's a monetization of following. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't,
Distribution.
yeah, like they are tequila brands. Let's say we stick with tequila brands.
Yep.
Like there are plenty of tequila brands that you don't know. They don't have an affiliation with a specific person.
For sure.
Right? Like I was about to say even Casamigos, I'm like, it's not like you had George Clooney all over that. People knew that it was George Clooney's brand, but it wasn't the same as like maybe The Rock, who's a lot more behind Terramana and like Connor with like Proper 12, which is really pushing it.
Yeah, they were more vocal about their brands.
Like George Clooney was cool. Like I think a lot of people might not even have known that it was his brand.
Yeah, maybe once it's launched.
Right.
But for sure, you don't have to. But it's such an unfair advantage if you have it though. Like it's so much.
Yeah, that's
quicker,
the thing. So like I think that like I see it more where like people realize the power of a following, and they're like, hey, like there's a lot of different ways to use your following right now, but you should really think about monetizing it if you're, because you can.
Yeah. So where do you see this is going for your company, FightCamp?
I'm focused on the short, medium term for now.
Yeah.
I think that the next thing is we do want to expand our influencer strategy.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I think we do want to put our trainers more at the forefront of the brand, make the brand culturally relevant, which I think like in the past few years, we were so focused on trying to just be relatable and accessible to the mainstream that I think we lost a little bit of that, attractiveness in our brand. I feel like it almost got diluted a little bit.
Right.
So now we kind of want to go back a little bit into our roots and look like we are actually part of the conversation if you're into boxing, MMA, more than just like, hey, this is just this fitness thing.
Because this is what you were set out to do at the beginning anyways. Like this is from where you're coming from, your world, boxing.
Yeah.
So it's just like staying in your own lane and owning that market per se. And this is what's going to attract more people and grow your product.
I think that at some point, the thought process was we looked like we're for people that know what they're doing in boxing. So then we tried to strip down a little bit of that cultural relevancy to be a little bit more kind of, hey, we're for you person that has zero experience in this. I think we just might have pushed the pendulum a little too far.
Right. So now you're just going back to
just calibrating. Yeah.
Yeah. So knowing all that you know now, let's just say you were starting FightCamp today.
Yeah.
Like, what would be the shortest path to success for you? What would be the 1, 2, or 3 things you would want to focus on, or maybe one thing that would get you fastest success?
I mean, we kind of did it pretty fast. For the
10 years is very fast for a business.
Well, those the first 4 years, things moved slowly because we were building this hardware product and stuff, but
still fast. Like in a lifespan of a business, this is still quick.
I'll take it. I don't know, man. I'm looking at like some software counterparts where in a matter of 4 years build, like literally like $1 billion businesses and stuff where like, I don't know. It feels like there was a moment a few years ago where businesses were being built much faster than now, I guess.
Yeah.
But like considering that like we launched FightCamp in 2018 and, like basically 2.5 years later raised 70 million for that company. I think it was pretty damn fast.
Yeah. You look at that.
I think the different path I would do is I would probably look at market trends earlier as a starting founder and position myself where the money is flowing. I just don't think I had that skill set at that point, you know.
So what do you mean exactly? Like, how would you position yourself better knowing what happened?
Well, I think I think that we were, trying to build a big brand by focusing on professional athletes, I think is a terrible decision. Anything selling to professional athletes is just like, depend on your scale and then ambition. But for the ambitions that we had, it just didn't really fit, Like, I don't know of any brand that is solely focused on professional athletes that build like something massive.
So focusing on the trend would be your main thing?
I think evaluating your market with like a sober eye will basically help you set your own expectations a little better, I think.
Which is very hard to do. When you have a vision, you have an idea, it's easy to fall in love with your idea rather than, like you said, being sober about it and just looking at the trend.
I basically would want to evaluate more so the growth of the market instead of the size that it currently is.
Okay, let's see.
Like, is this a thing that people will use more and more over time? And how fast is it growing?
A little bit how like Jeff Bezos chose to do Amazon. He just looked at the growth of the internet and decided to, if I start something in that market, it will work. So let me try anything, let's say, make a list and pick the one that I want to do the most, and it will work. And it did work.
Yeah. Like, say, for example, like right now, like the obvious one is AI, right?
Yeah.
If you just take a moment to analyze the tailwinds that you have, I think like there's in an AI company right now, like basically, that whatever, like if you use the models properly, that without you doing anything, your product will get better.
Yeah.
Like, just because the core tech that you'll get easily access to is just going to get better without you having to work on anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a pretty interesting tailwind so like whatever works okay today, without you working on it, will become really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy tailwind to build a company.
Yeah, crazy wave to be on.
Yeah, that's like someone is working for your products for free, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe another one is the demand, right? So like maybe like you're looking at something where it's getting softwareized.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, like not a lot of people are adopting these solutions right now. It's going in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So now you kind of have these two tailwinds working for you without having to do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe a third tailwind will be, okay, like the way people are pricing these products, like let's say you're selling to businesses and you're selling on a percentage of, like what they're making.
Mm-hmm.
And those businesses are small now, but they're growing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That's a third tailwind where it's like, hey, these businesses are not big today, but they're growing, they're getting market share.
Mm-hmm.
And because this product idea or whatever, like I'm selling, is actually like the business model that people are used to is based on a percentage of what they make.
Yeah.
So now you have three tailwinds.
Yeah.
And without having to actually do better. Like literally, if you just secure those things, your solution will get better without having to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
More and more people will need what you're selling without you having to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And without you having to do anything, you'll make more money with your customers.
Yeah.
So that's like, when you compound these compounding forces, you can build something massive,
So basically just go where the current is going, and you're basically sure to find something that can work.
Yeah. And like, I understand what you're saying. Like, it's hard to just like self-select a business with this kind of framework way of thinking. But I think what I think is it's more so a dance. Like, I think you need is there a need here?
Yeah.
Like, will I use this product?
Yeah.
Like, would I pay for this product? Whether as a business, an individual, or whatever. That's, I think, the first step.
You need some passion. in
Yeah. Like you have to see like, yeah, the world needs X because I needed it or whatever.
yeah.
Or I very much know that my business would have bought this or whatever.
Mhm.
But then as you start to define what that is, and you like you choose angles with your business, then I think you use this other framework to select between the three ideas you have.
Mhm.
And if those three are all serving this need, but they start to branch off pretty quickly. And I think you just use the top lens and the bottom lens
Mhm.
to just, like position yourself strategically in the best way.
So if you use that analogy, like what is the characteristic of a founder that you will look for? Like, let's say you can rewind back and point out to, like, let's say 2 or 3 criteria that you need to have as a founder to be successful. Which one would you pick?
Like I can choose one only.
No, you can choose. You can go with 2 or 3. Like, which one are the most important for you?
Okay. So, I mean, the first one is just determination. Like if you're determined and you have high endurance for pain, it's just way harder to fail. Like if you have low tolerance for pain and if you don't see exactly the thing working, like you just like, you're like, switch idea.
Yeah.
I just don't really think you're gonna have a lot of success because like none of the ideas that are really worth building work at the beginning, and you just need to like hit a lot of walls and power through them.
Throw a stick at the wall.
Yeah. So I think determination for sure. Second one is man, just good communication skills.
Oh.
Like I can't stress this enough. I really think I kind of underestimated it at the beginning. But if people cannot express their ideas clearly, express their negative emotions, will happen.
Right.
Like they're just gonna be hard to work with.
Yeah.
So like having someone who's emotionally intelligent enough to like, you don't need to be a god at it, but you need someone who's like, who can talk through bad situations and express their needs clearly, and frankly be easy to work with. Otherwise I think it's a time ticking bomb.
Because people think often that it's how you can explain or communicate your idea, like what you do, what's your product and all that stuff. But it's actually kind of it's important, but more importantly, is how you work with people.
Yeah.
How you can, like you said,
that's right.
tolerate people emotionally and communicate with them.
Yeah. Like just expressing disagreeing is an art form. Like it's really hard actually. Like that's really not trivial to disagree with someone's proposal in a constructive way. Like it's very easy to ruff feathers the wrong way by just, not knowing how to communicate or how to give feedback. Like people as a teammate will come to you and you'll hate what they're proposing. Like you really believe it's like it's not great. Or maybe they'll submit work and you're like, it's really not good work actually. And being able to express it in a constructive way. So like, a lot of people won't say anything. And that just makes for bad team culture. I'd rather actually have someone who says it badly than to not say it. But saying it well is that much better. So yeah, being able to like, frankly, collaborate. And the positive part is easy. Great work. Like, that's like the easy one. But the hard one is the disagreeing, the negative feedback.
The hard conversation.
The hard conversations. And those are the ones that like you really want to be good at,
Yeah.
I think the third one is maybe optimism. Like being solution oriented instead of problem oriented. That like it's so easy to like look at any idea and find ways that it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like that's the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like you can tell me anything that is extremely successful today, like Uber. And for sure, like the amount of VCs that probably found insane amount of reasons why this is going to be terrible, So like, I think if you have a pessimistic view, you'll be right. And you might think it's good that you're right, but like, you're just going to consistently never really pursue anything.
That's true.
So like, I think having a degree of optimism and being like, what if it could work? Like, how could it work? I think it's just a much more interesting mindset than someone who's like, nah, Like, I just don't think people will care, and here's why. It's not a very useful teammate.
I think this is something that knowing you always had, like in a very high amount, like starting from the beginning
Uh,
and not knowing if it's going to work and not knowing if this is a good idea or not, but still pursuing it and throwing stuff at the walls. And at some point, knowing that having the faith that it's going to work,
yeah,
it brings you to going back to California to Y Combinator and then finding out like maybe your V2, what's going to be the next step to your product.
right.
And then the V3 and so on. It was always something that was constant, kind of riding the momentum, but also you need to believe that there's going to be a momentum at some point to catch it.
Yeah. I think being a founder, like in the end, you're basically like you're trying to do something extraordinary,
Yeah.
like extraordinary. So like you kind of have to go against the grain. Like for me, it was almost like like obviously I will go towards the odds. That's kind of the point, actually. Like I'm trying to live in an extraordinary fashion. Therefore, I cannot do ordinary things, And like, I think if you just keep finding reasons of why something is not going to work, you're always going to do ordinary things and obvious things. And you're never really going to have an extraordinary story.
Yeah.
So like, I just don't think like you can have something special and do normal things. Like you have to do special things. That's why people don't do that. That's
Yeah.
why it's special.
Yeah.
So like, I
And-
don't know, it's almost inherent to,
Yeah. Which goes to your first point. You're going to have to do that a lot because you're going to be wrong a lot. But if you have a high pain point tolerance, at some point, something's going to work.
yeah. Like it's kind of where the money is actually. Like it's this, all the easy paths to be successful have been covered. Like you have to go in places where people haven't been yet,
So what would be the one thing, like you have all these qualities that is necessary for a founder. In your own experience, what's the one thing you had to unlearn that was not true about maybe yourself or what was required?
This is a great question. I think I used to try to get inspired by stories that I could see myself in. I just don't think it's a productive mindset. What I mean by that is embracing your uniqueness is the only way to think. Like, for example, I used to think of like, as stupid as it sounds, but I used to have this insecurity about like, man, I don't know any Tunisian founder who's ever made it. Like if I look at like the list of founders who are successful, I can kind of trace like a lot of parallel between like their kind of backgrounds and where they're from and where they studied and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, shit, I don't fit any of those. And like, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm just impostering my way to this process. And like, instead, like switching that mindset to start really embracing, like you almost have to fall in love with your own uniqueness in its own, it's celebrated. I think it's like this internal mindset that it's like, no, that's the reason why you will work actually. It's like, I'm unique. And being unique is, instead of trying to find patterns with other stories, which I think is always like, I think will lead you to at some point find the reasons why you don't have that pattern and why that's going to be the demise. Like that's the reason why you're not going to succeed. Instead, like embrace the very unique journey that you're on, whether it's been a long time, more time than what you're hearing, the stories here, or like maybe why you don't fit, blah, blah. It's almost like be like, that's the cool part about it is I'm going to write the first playbook for that specific set of circumstances.
Your story is your most powerful asset in a way.
Yeah.
You have to lead with that. You have to lead with authenticity. And that's just how things are going to work out.
Yeah. So I guess like in another way is to not get your self-confidence from other people. Like to get it from within instead, Because I think that if you get it with external patterns or other people's stories, at some point you will not fit that story, and then I think you're back to square one again.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be the one.
For our listeners, this is a big, maybe the best way to finish this interview. So thank you a lot for all the knowledge you shared and this incredible story and where people can find you.
Aspiring producer online. So you can find me at kels.music on Instagram. And yeah, if you like house music and you want to listen to some of my sets, you can find me there.
Nice. Or fightcamp.com to
For the product, yeah, I should probably have led with that. Yeah, so fightcamp.com is where you can find us. At FightCamp on Instagram. You also can find our YouTube channel. Yeah, you'll have access to all the information that you want. And you can also follow our trainers, which you'll get through our social media channels as well.
cool. Well, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.